Astronomy galleries are public places where visitors interact with the exhibit and try to learn the various ideas, learn and relearn the various ideas presented in the exhibit as they move around the exhibits in the gallery. So, in fact, any science gallery is built on a progressive progression of ideas where exhibit depicts one idea at a time in a sequential way. And as people go around, as visitors move around the gallery in a particular fashion, they get a holistic idea of the topic as such, or of the subject as such, as it is displayed in the gallery. So, Regional Science Center Planetarium Calicut has a astronomy gallery called the Hall of Astronomy. But where is this Regional Science Center Planetarium located? The Regional Science Center Planetarium is located in a place in India, in the state of Kerala, and in the city of Calicut or Kozhikode at a latitude of 11.26 degree north and 75.78 degree east. So the entrance to the gallery will look somewhat like this, which is shown in the left, and you can see that as the visitor enters through the gallery looks somewhat as it is shown in the right side, the entrance, the first few exhibits. The gallery covers an area of around 1,500 square feet, and it was inaugurated in 2010. So before in this presentation, I will be discussing about the visitors' behavior as they move through the gallery and what all insights we can gain from that. So before we discuss that particular aspect, I will take you through a virtual walkthrough of this particular gallery, so you have an understanding. Then I will be giving you the logical structure on which the exhibits are kept, or the exhibits are developed, and these galleries formed. And after that, actually, we will go to the behavioral aspects of the visitors. So this is what is a virtual walkthrough. And I will take you to the astronomy gallery as such. So you can see here this is the astronomy galleries. As one enters, you can see that they see the various exhibits. It starts with certain ancient concepts, and then we have other things. The structure I will be discussing after this. There are other exhibits like occultation and transits, sun, our daytime star. Then we have the orrery of the solar system. And then we have 18 different planets. We have space, the frictionless fabric. We have the evolution of stars. We have the celestial sphere, and much more. And then we have other exhibits like we have the Galileo and his telescope, the cut section of a telescope as it is shown here, the radio telescopes, and the astronauts as they look like the cutout of an astronaut. Then we have the precision and nutation. We have the tides, eclipses, how they occur. We have the Kepler's law. There are ancient astronomies, the gravitational well, and so many things. So we'll come back to our exhibits, and then we have the next slide shows actually the structure in which these exhibits in the gallery are arranged. So logically the gallery is divided into four sections: the pre-telescopic era, the post-telescopic era, the Earth and the Moon, and in search of the cosmic truth. So in the pre-telescopic era, the various concepts are made into exhibits, like the earlier concept in which the people used to think about the universe as such, or how the planets move around, and so on. So there were Aristotle's views, Ptolemy's views, Copernican concepts, Copernicus model of the solar system, Tycho Brahe's observatory and the instrument which he used and what he did with all those things. Then there are Kepler's laws of planetary motion and ancient Indian astronomy. And there are some of the instruments which Aryabhatta or some other ancient Indian astronomers have used to study the movement of the objects in the sky. In post-telescopic era, we have the Galileo's modest telescope, and how when he looked through the telescope, he changed the astronomy as such. People's view have changed. What is a telescope? What are the classification of the telescope? There are reflecting and refracting telescope. What is a radio telescope? Why should there be a radio and optical telescope on the ground? So these are addressed through various exhibits. Then we have a very large array. So after that, we have the section called Earth and Moon. So how tides are formed, how eclipses are formed, what is a transit, what is a occultation, what actually exactly is a pole star. So what is the internal structure of a sun, how sun generates energy. So all these things are addressed in the Earth and Moon. And then we have the last section, which is termed as the In Search of Cosmic Truth, where other questions of astronomy are addressed, like what is space, what is the temperature of stars, then how is the solar system, grand structure of the solar system, what is the celestial sphere, how do people weigh in different planets, astro pulsars, and so and so. So then we have an unbanked quiz. We have a career guidance section where actually students can learn about what are the careers in astronomy. We have a Foucault pendulum, and this full thing forms the hall of astronomy. So visitors interact. Nearly 5 lakh visitors or 500,000 visitors visit this gallery annually, and they interact with the exhibit, and they try to behave in a certain pattern. So that's what is the core focus of the presentation, which we are I'm trying to address here. So before we generalize what all visitors do, let us look at a common scenario in which actually we will see that how visitors move around in the gallery. Now you can see that visitors, how they are moving around. Some are trying to explain one another, some are trying to help each other, some are just moving around freely from without any direction. They just move around from one exhibit to another. Some help their friends to actually operate one particular telescope. Some interact with the exhibit and try to learn what is there. So these are all various aspects visitors try to do, and in the process they may learn, or they many learn, and many ask queries, many interact with the exhibit too high, so that they get some aspect of this particular topic. So we have some of the questions we tried to address in this presentation is that in which exhibit visitors spend more time. So there are a lot of different exhibits, around 60 exhibits are there in the gallery. So we have seen that in some exhibits, people's visitors devote a lot of time. For example, one of the exhibits is a Be an Astronaut. But we have seen that a lot of people cluster there, a lot of people take photographs, a lot of people try to be an astronaut by standing behind the cutout. Maybe that they aspire to be an astronaut and they get satisfied by participating in that particular exhibit. So this is one of the exhibit which is quite popular and people spend a lot of time there. Then we have another exhibit called Weigh Yourself in Different Planets. So people see how they weigh in Mars, how they weigh in Jupiter, how they weigh in Saturn, how they weigh in Moon. So they get it is somewhat interesting to them, interesting for them to actually learn this or to view this. So they spend a lot of time in this particular exhibit. Then we have seen that mechanical orrery, where actually we are showing the revolution and rotation of the various planets around the sun. So people spend a lot of time using this particular interacting and seeing this particular exhibit. Then we have seen an astronomy quiz, an automated astronomy quiz where questions come in a TV, and there are 4 switching keying stations where actually visitors either in group or singly they stand, and there are with their friends, and questions come and they key in their answer. Whoever keys first is registered first, and ultimately their score is displayed. So maybe due to the way they wanted to show to their peers or to their other friends that they have more knowledge. So they try to interact and they try to spend a lot of time in this particular astro quiz exhibit. Then we also found out that in occultation and transit, this exhibit, they try to rotate the knobs and they try to align the different objects like the planets or satellites, and try to make the occultation phenomena or the transit phenomena, try to get inside. They have a lot of queries on that. So they spend an ample amount of time. Similarly, they spend a lot of time in Tycho Brahe's sextant, how they try to move around and they try to see how actually the angular measurements can be made using that particular exhibit. So in which exhibit does people read the labels and the write-ups? Now there are exhibits where actually a lot of write-ups are there. substantial amount of literature is reproduced in a diluted way, or maybe certain infographics are there. So there are many infographics, but we found that all of them are not palatable to the visitors. Some they like it. So for example, when they enter the gallery, there is an introductory panel where actually the structure of the gallery, what is astronomy and all these sorts present there, and people try to actually read that. Similarly, we have an infographics on cosmic evolution, and people try to go through that and try to understand what are the different aspects in which actually our universe got evolved. So these are some of the exhibits actually people like to interact with. Then we have one more exhibit called Sun, our daytime star. How suns produce energy? What is the internal structure of the sun? We have seen that people like that particular exhibit and have a lot of queries on that. So this is one of the exhibit in which people have a lot of queries in which people like to know more about it. Then we have another exhibit called celestial sphere, the abstract model in which actually the kinematics and the dynamics of the, mainly the kinematics, the positional aspect and kinematics are depicted using a mechanical model. So people try to interact with that exhibit, they try to rotate the celestial sphere, they try to align it at various points, and they try to understand how it works actually. So they interact for an appreciable duration of time with this particular exhibit. Then we have one more exhibit called Space, a Frictionless Fabric, where actually there is an exhibit where a carom board type of environment is there with perforation, and there is a blower underneath, and without switching on the blower, if they just strike the striker, it stops after some time. But when they switch on the blower, the air coming out acts as a cushion, as a lubricant, and the striker goes on moving. So they get thrilled with it, why it is happening and what is its connection with the space. So they try to ask, they try to inquire what is this. So they have a lot of curiosity, they have a lot of inquiries about this, but some of these exhibits, and these are some of the exhibits where people show a lot of interest. Then we found that actually neurologists and our brain scientists, they say that now people try to understand when they socialize, when they try to learn in groups, they try to interact in groups. So we have found out that many of the exhibits are there where actually one of the person or one of the visitor try to actually interact or try to socialize with his peer and try to understand a particular exhibit. Like Foucault pendulum, they try to figure out why actually it is behaving in a particular way, or the gravitational well, why the ball rotates and goes on rotating and ultimately falls. So they actually, what they do is that they actually try to one of the visitor try to interact with another visitor and try to explain him, and then the other one try to put up a question, and ultimately they come to a conclusion that what this the exhibit try to come how to actually understand this particular exhibit. So they socialize and understand. So this aspect we have noticed in some of the exhibits, and few of the exhibits are depicted here. So now, the next question comes is that do visitor follow the exact chronology of the exhibit in which the gallery is developed? There is a sequence, as we have shown you, that initially we have the sequence of this pre-telescopic, post-telescopic, and exhibits are ordered in there or they randomly move around. So we found out that about 80% of the visitors follow this sequence. They try to understand in that particular fashion. They move around in the chronological order. Sometimes they wait before an exhibit and interact for a certain duration of sometimes. Sometimes they skip or they just briefly stand in front of the exhibit and move to the next one. But they follow the sequence. And really, actually, very kids or small younger visitors, they try to just randomly move around here and there and play around, but they not in a regular fashion. So this was one of the general observations. So based on this observation, actually, we try to understand how visitor interact in a museum environment, in a non-formal environment, how they try to understand the various aspects of astronomy, and they try to learn various aspects. And this is what we wanted to share with all of you. Thank you.